subpoena Serena, and she's not happy about that. Lawyers for the Confederate cosplay.
I can speak for myself. I've never been paid for any of my content related to Blake from anyone from Justin's team.
You'd think Blake Lively's biggest courtroom moment would be her high-profile deposition, but that was just the distraction. Because behind the scenes, she quietly subpoenaed a content creator with fewer than 100 subscribers, no monetization, and no power. This wasn't a gossip YouTuber with a massive reach or big brand backing. This was a survivor, a voice speaking up. And Blake used the full weight of her legal team to try and shut her down. Even more shocking, Blake's lawyers have already admitted they have no direct evidence of a coordinated attack. So why drag innocent people into court? Why demand Google hand over personal financial information from people who've made no money from their videos? This isn't about justice, it's about control.
Subpoenaed Google to get information from 16 small creators.
And Blake may have just crossed a line she can't come back from. While the mainstream media zeroed in on Blake Lively's court appearance and the drama of her deposition, a far more unsettling story was unfolding in the background, one that barely got a mention. Because while the headlines focused on Blake facing tough legal questions, what she was quietly doing behind the scenes reveals a whole different side to her case. And to her. Instead of training her legal team on the powerful executives at Wayfair, the company she claims wronged her, Blake redirected her energy toward people with the least power, small, independent content creators. And we're not talking about big influencers or YouTubers with millions of followers. Number one of the creators she targeted had just 38 subscribers on YouTube.
Wouldn't Blake have a better response than that? The movie is about DV, so DV survivors responded to how you're represented.
No monetization, no sponsorships, no revenue. Just a voice and an opinion. Her name is Ken. She's a domestic violence survivor who started covering Blake's lawsuit against Wayfair because she took issue with how Blake promoted the film It Ends With Us. From Ken's perspective, it felt like the real experiences of survivors were being downplayed. Or worse, used as a marketing tool. She shared her concerns publicly, just like thousands of other internet users do every day. But then came the subpoena. Blake Lively's lawyers sent a legal demand to Google for access to Ken's private data. That means her account info, banking details, and any possible trace of how she runs her channel. The kicker?
Note that everyone that was interviewed in this article requested to be anonymous. Many stated because they were utterly frightened by her.
Ken wasn't even earning money from her videos. She had never signed up for monetization. There was nothing to gain. And yet Blake's team still went after her. And Ken isn't the only one. According to sources, at least 16 creators have been subpoenaed this way. Some had less than 100 subscribers. Others had no payment information on file at all. These weren't media professionals. They were regular people posting commentary, most of whom had never had a single interaction with Blake, Wayfair, or anyone involved in the actual case. So why target them? Blake's entire legal claim relies on the idea that there was a coordinated online campaign against her, one allegedly orchestrated by Wayfair or their lawyers.
Performing actions in this supposed smear campaign retaliation. So this supposed YouTube user...
But the documents Wayfair provided didn't show any proof of that. So now Blake's team is reaching elsewhere, trying to dig into creators' private lives to find something, anything, that fits her narrative. But there's a problem. Freedom of speech doesn't disappear just because someone finds criticism uncomfortable. And while Blake's team frames this as part of discovery, the message being sent is far more chilling. Speak up and you could get dragged into a legal fight you never asked for. Now here's where things get even more alarming. Google has confirmed that Blake Lively's subpoena is real. And unless something changes fast, they might actually hand over sensitive user information from multiple creators.
Have you heard about the Google subpoena going around for content creators? Well, yeah, I'm one of those content creators. On my YouTube channel, we talk about
including names, IP addresses, bank details, and more. Usually, platforms like YouTube push back hard on this type of request. They cite privacy laws, such as the Stored Communications Act, and argue that users are entitled to a basic layer of protection, especially when they're not accused of breaking any laws. In most cases, creators have the right to remain anonymous unless there's overwhelming evidence justifying that exposure. But in this situation, that's not what's happening. Google reportedly told at least one of the subpoenaed creators that if they don't file a motion to quash, their personal information could be released. In other words, fight this in court, or we may give your data to Blake's legal team.
Blake Lively accused of trying to silence her critics and launching a shady legal blitz? Oh man, look at this.
That puts the burden on individual creators, some of whom can't even afford an attorney, to spend thousands of dollars in legal fees just to protect themselves from something they didn't ask to be part of. This flips the legal system upside down. The subpoena doesn't accuse any of these creators of wrongdoing. There's no proof they coordinated with Wayfair, no documents showing they were paid or instructed by anyone. Many of them were simply reacting to public filings and giving their opinions, something completely legal and protected under the First Amendment. But that's not stopping Blake's team from demanding private financial records, YouTube activity, and even the names of users who've sent donations or super chats. The implication here is deeply troubling.
That no matter what's going on, Google and YouTube believe they have a real subpoena. Either way.
If someone with enough money and legal power doesn't like what's being said about them online, they can go fishing through user data until they find a narrative that benefits them, even if it means trampling on privacy rights to get there. And the question becomes, what happens if this tactic works? Because if it does, the message is clear. Critics can be silenced not by argument, but by intimidation. And next, we'll look at why this sudden shift in legal strategy may reveal more about Blake's position than she's letting on. At first glance, you'd think Blake Lively's legal team was going after a well-funded, coordinated operation. But once you see who's actually being subpoenaed, the reality becomes much harder to justify, and a whole lot more disturbing.
Creators who have also received this notice of subpoena from Google, please message me. I'd like.
Among the 16 content creators targeted is a woman named Ken, known online as Existing to Thrive. Her TikTok has modest traction, but her YouTube channel? At the time of being subpoenaed, it had just 38 subscribers. No monetization, no sponsors, no sign of this being anything more than a personal outlet for commentary and opinions. The kind that thousands of people post every single day. And it doesn't stop there. Several other creators have come forward with similar stories. Small, independent voices who barely have a digital footprint, let alone corporate backing. Many of them haven't earned a single dollar from the content Blake's team is scrutinizing. They're not running coordinated smear campaigns.
So apparently Blake Lively knows that I just genuinely dislike her. And why I say that is I've had over 5 million views from my Justin Baldoni.
They're not being paid under the table. Most are just regular people, survivors, advocates, and curious minds who spoke out about a public case involving a very famous woman. So why go after them? Well, when you strip away the legal jargon and posturing, the motive starts to feel personal. Blake's team isn't claiming these creators committed defamation or harassment. Instead, the argument being floated is that they might be connected to Wayfair, part of a supposed retaliatory campaign with no clear evidence to support the claim. This feels less like a legal investigation and more like a fishing expedition, one that conveniently puts pressure on anyone who's been critical of her narrative. Worse yet, the creators being targeted aren't being given the benefit of the doubt.
In YouTube, and I'm seeing all of your comments kind of roll through, and I'm like, we need to talk.
They're being treated like potential co-conspirators in a scheme that has yet to be proven real. And they're expected to foot the legal bill just to protect their identities and basic rights. And if that sounds like an abuse of power, just wait. Because in the next section, we'll dive into the eerie pattern this move follows, and how it echoes a tactic that's starting to show up more and more in celebrity legal battles. This isn't just about information anymore. It's about sending a message, one that says, speak out and you might get dragged into this mess. Blake Lively's legal approach is beginning to resemble a tactic some are calling subpoena pressure. It's not a formal legal term, but it's becoming more recognizable in the world of public figures and lawsuits.
Has not scared me, intimidated me, and will not silence me. I'd also like to say I have never been contacted by Justin Baldoni and his peers.
Here's how it works. Instead of proving that someone said something false or defamatory, you subpoena them, not to win a case, but to intimidate, exhaust, or isolate. Even creators with no money involved, no connections to any corporate parties, and no prior involvement in the lawsuit are now finding themselves forced to lawyer up, just to protect their bank records, their personal data, or even their privacy online. And here's the part that really unsettles people. Blake isn't even asking these creators to defend what they said. She's demanding to know who might be paying them. But there's one major problem. None of these people are being paid. Not by Wayfair, not by anyone.
Their YouTube accounts. Why? Because they've posted about Blake's ongoing legal and
They're simply regular people reacting to a public story. In fact, many of them aren't even monetized. So what exactly is Blake hoping to find? That's the question critics are asking. Because this isn't about defending her name at this point. It's starting to look like a systematic effort to scare people away from discussing the case at all. It also raises a bigger question. If this kind of legal action becomes the norm, what happens to commentary? What happens to open discussion online? What happens to people who want to express concern or disagreement without fear of needing a lawyer? Because whether intentional or not, the chilling effect is real. But the deeper we look into this strategy, the more it seems this wasn't just a legal misstep.
I wish I could rally all the funds and save everybody, but like I said, this varies state and country by country. Each person's gonna have their own.
It could be part of a pattern that reveals how far Blake's team is willing to go and what they're really afraid of. That's coming next. This situation might seem like a one-time overreach, but when you zoom out, something more troubling starts to come into focus. Blake Lively's legal team has issued over 60 subpoenas so far. 60. And they're not just going to corporate parties or media outlets. They're going to individuals with barely any audience, some with fewer than 100 subscribers, and many who don't make a single dollar from their content. One creator, known online as Existing to Thrive, had just 38 YouTube subscribers at the time she was subpoenaed. Her total view count? Around 2,300.
Did I just get subpoenaed on stage? There's much speculation about whether or not.
That's not influence. That's not reach. That's someone posting on their personal time, sharing an opinion. And still, her bank information was requested. And yet, Blake's own legal filings admit something crucial. They have no direct evidence that any of these creators were hired, paid, or coordinated by the defendants in the case. So why go this far? Critics believe this is less about stopping actual harm and more about controlling the narrative. If you can't stop people from talking, you make them afraid to talk. You use the legal system not just as a shield, but as a tool of pressure and disruption. And for creators who are survivors of trauma themselves, like domestic violence victims who began commenting on the case because of how it impacted them emotionally.
Looking into this malware, and it seems like it would be hard for the trial to be decided by a judge here.
This tactic feels especially cruel. They're being told, in effect, it doesn't matter if you're small. If you speak, we might come after you. At this point, the question isn't, is Blake trying to win a case? It's becoming, what is she trying to hide or suppress? Because this many subpoenas without solid evidence, that's not just overkill, that's a red flag. And with each new filing, each new creator pulled in, it's looking less like legal due process and more like a strategy that walks a fine line between protecting image and punishing critics. As Blake Lively's legal campaign expands, many are now questioning not just her motives, but the system enabling it.
This is 100% real, and this is war. Goosebumps. What do you guys think of this?
Under US law, anyone can issue a subpoena if it's part of a legitimate legal proceeding. But here's the catch. There's little oversight at the moment a subpoena is sent. That means a well-funded legal team can target almost anyone, demanding personal data, even from people with no clear connection to the case. And if the recipients can't afford to legally challenge it, that data might be handed over without resistance. Platforms like Google and YouTube aren't always required to fight on behalf of users. In fact, some creators received notices from Google stating that unless they file a motion to quash the subpoena themselves, their information may be handed over. For the average person, that's terrifying.
Because that information or communication may reference me, he thinks that he is the reason why they're even subpoenaing them.
These aren't public figures or media organizations. These are everyday people, some anonymous, some trauma survivors, who simply voiced concern or criticism about Blake's case. People with no income from their content, no legal training, and no expectation that expressing an opinion could land them in court documents. And the worst part? According to multiple creators, Blake's team hasn't even asked them directly for information. Instead, they've gone around them, subpoenaing their platforms, their banks, and potentially even third parties, without initiating normal discovery procedures with the individuals themselves. To critics, this feels like a clear message. We don't need proof to dig into your life. We just need power.
Oh, she's just digging that ditch. I mean, come on. We are all forming our opinions on our own. You're just making yourself look worse if it's real.
The sheer number of subpoenas, combined with the disproportionate impact on small creators, is beginning to raise serious questions about misuse of legal force. At what point does legal strategy cross into ethical gray area? And how far should celebrities be allowed to go in the name of defending their name? Because right now, it's not just one lawsuit, it's turning into a test of how much pressure one person with resources can place on everyday voices. As Blake Lively's legal net tightens, some of the targeted creators aren't backing down. In fact, a few are banding together, quietly forming support groups, comparing notes, and looking into joint legal responses. But make no mistake, the cost of standing up is steep.
Be anything but honest. This is not high energy.
One creator, whose YouTube channel isn't even monetized, confirmed receiving a subpoena for their Google account data. They have fewer than 100 subscribers and barely 2,500 total views. Yet they were still swept into the legal dragnet. Why? That's the part nobody seems able to answer clearly. There's no evidence of coordination, no proof of payment, just speculation and an aggressive legal push. Another content creator, an outspoken survivor of domestic violence, shared that her commentary on Blake's promotion of It Ends With Us came from a deeply personal place. She wasn't paid, she wasn't prompted, and yet she's now being asked to prepare for possible legal escalation.
Friedman, but there are other attorneys on the Wayfarer side that are great attorneys, and I think they will be able to...
Her crime? Criticizing the way Blake framed the film's themes and the sensitive subject matter it touches? For many of these creators, the biggest fear isn't the lawsuit, it's the precedent. If this strategy works, it sends a chilling message to small voices everywhere. If you criticize the wrong person, even politely, you might face subpoenas, data requests, and legal threats, whether or not you've done anything wrong. Some are now exploring motions to quash the subpoenas. But hiring an attorney for even basic legal filings can cost thousands. Money most independent creators simply don't have. And Blake's team, backed by powerhouse firms and industry elites, they don't face the same limitations.
Whatever, who cares? I wanted to feel like Blake Lively felt when she filed her complaint. Tons of fibs. Amazing update.
This isn't a courtroom battle of equals. It's a power imbalance that many say is being exploited to send a message, loud and clear. But here's the twist. The more creators speak out, the more backlash Blake seems to face. Because outside of the legal paperwork, this battle is playing out on public platforms. And the optics, they're shifting fast. What started as a niche legal battle is now creeping into the mainstream conversation, and not in the way Blake Lively likely intended. As more people learn that she's subpoenaing creators with barely any following, sympathy is rapidly shifting away from her and toward the individuals now burdened with legal stress they never saw coming. The tipping point? A court filing revealed that many of these creators aren't even monetized.
It's absolutely sickening. All this while also subpoenaing other YouTube creators for your subscriber data.
Meaning there's no financial incentive, no alleged gain from covering her case. Just independent commentary. That alone has sparked outrage from legal experts, journalists, and even some of Blake's former fans. One entertainment columnist wrote, "Subpoenaing people for voicing opinions on public court documents? That's not legal strategy. That's intimidation." And others are starting to ask whether this tactic could cross into what's called slap-adjacent behavior, moves designed to silence critics through costly and exhausting legal procedures. Even creators who haven't received subpoenas are paying attention. Many are reconsidering what they cover, second-guessing whether their commentary might invite unwanted legal attention.
Research you're doing. Candace, I believe this is about the Taylor Swift leak. They still don't know who snitched or how it got out that Lively...
It's a chilling effect, and that's exactly why the concern is growing. But Blake's team continues to push forward, citing a need for evidence in their ongoing case. The irony? They've openly admitted they don't have any concrete proof of a coordinated digital campaign. They're just fishing, and the net is getting wider. At this point, the situation is beginning to take on a life of its own. What was once a dispute between a celebrity and a corporate entity has now become a debate over power, influence, and freedom of speech in the digital age. And as Blake's legal filings get louder, so does the criticism. Blake Lively may have walked into this legal mess thinking she could control the narrative, silence critics, and protect her image.
Lively subpoenaed me? Question mark? For reasons I can't get into.
But what's unfolding now is much bigger than any one celebrity dispute. By targeting creators with almost no reach, some with under 100 subscribers, no monetization, and no legal representation, she's drawn a line in the sand. Not against a corporation, but against regular people who dared to ask questions, analyze court filings, or simply share their opinions. And while she might argue this is about protecting her name, the methods she's using, subpoenas, document grabs, endless discovery delays, have triggered something she might not be ready for: public accountability. Not from tabloids, but from a growing chorus of independent voices who are no longer staying quiet.
Blake, case. I just feel like I don't entirely understand what this means for us. I do understand that I do not know how to spell subpoena.
This isn't about guilt or innocence anymore. It's about power, and the lengths some people will go to protect it. Whether Blake wins or loses in court, she's already lost something far more important: public trust. Because once fans start seeing a beloved figure use legal firepower to intimidate survivors and silence criticism, that shiny Hollywood image starts to crack. And what's behind it? Well, we're all watching.